Hello, my name is Stupidubins. I recently finished a simulation where I had every gym trainer battle each other, and these are the worst of the worst. So let's get started. For my first gym leader, I have Katie, the bug-type gym leader from Paldea. She actually ended up being the worst team of all time. Her team of Nimble, Tarantula, and Teddy Ursa is admittedly pretty bad. Being mono bug and having your ace Pokemon be mono normal and slow leads to not getting many wins. Fun fact, her only win came against Surge, who may or may not be on this list also. My second gym leader is Brawly from the Hoenn region. Could really just say he's bad and then just move on, but something deep inside me, maybe it's the kid who had to write essays to a certain word count, needs to fill time and make each video at least 5 minutes long. Anyway, what's funny to me is that this is actually Brawly's better team. This is the Emerald version with Machop, Meditite, and Makuhita. Also, his in-game team is actually worse than this one because his in-game team Meditite is programmed to only go for Focus Punch, which doesn't do anything if you attack it. I feel like I got enough words for this one, so I'm going to move on. Third gym leader is the aforementioned Lieutenant Surge from the Kanto region. His team of Voltorb, Pikachu, and Raichu is notoriously bad for Gym 3. Gym 3, by the way, is a gym famous for having some real heavy hitters. Whitney, Watson, and Iono, to name a few. Also, I've mentioned this previously, but a good indication if a gym is going to be good or bad is if they have a Pokemon and then the evolved form of the same Pokemon. We loved doing that in the 90s and early 2000s. We couldn't get enough of it. Also, eagle-eared listeners will say, but you just praised Watson's team for being good, and he does that. I would say to that, I'm a hypocrite and a liar. Never trust anyone you don't know. Fourth gym leader I have is Flanery from the Hoenn region. Again, this is her Emerald team, the better of the two teams, with Nomel, Slugma, Camerupt, and Torkoal. Also, I want to note the addition of Nomel and its evolved form Camerupt. This one really disappoints me because when I made my list of best gym leaders, I had thought Flanery would be the top Gym 4 trainer, but this is why I do the simulations, because I don't know anything on my own. I think the issue is I overrated her team without Sun, and probably overrated Torkoal, who's I've always been a huge fan of. Look at him, he's perfect. Just a tortoise, not even a fantasy tortoise, just a normal tortoise. Her team is really slow and very weak to a very common typing in water. The fifth gym leader I have is Koga from the Kanto region. His team of 2 Koffings, a Muck, and a Weezing is very bad. He took the thing about unevolved Pokemon to the extreme and slapped on 2 of those dang things on there. Also, Mono Poison is one of the worst types in the game, especially in a time when Fairy isn't a thing. For reference, Mono Poison is super effective against 13% of the decks, that is including Fairy, and is resisted by 29, and the rest being neutral. For example, a good offensive type, Ground, is super effective against 27% of the decks, and resisted by 24, the rest being neutral. So my advice to you, if you're going to pick a monotype, don't be like Koga. The sixth gym leader I have is Jasmine from the Johto region. Her team consists of 2 level 30 Magnemites and a Steelix. Do you know what level Magnemite evolves at? Yes, it's level 30. I don't think Game Freak trusted kids to be able to beat their games in the past without making them really freaking easy, which is what I think drives a lot of these design decisions, but this one is pretty baffling to me. She pretty much skates by to the fact that Steel is an uber S tier typing. Keeping in mind this is actually pre-nerf Steel, so at this point it's even more broken than it is now. The seventh gym leader I have is Price from the Johto region. His team is Seal, Dugong, and Piloswine. Again, we're seeing the basic Mon and the evolved version of that Mon. Also, I want to make a greater point about these older games. I touched on it previously, but I think this is a real issue that these games have with their difficulty. Thus far, every gym leader is in the pre-physical special split era, except Katie, who is from Gen 9, admittedly. I think that for all the issues these newer games have, what they do better than older games is difficulty. I think the average Pokemon fan is smarter and better at playing Pokemon than they were in the 90s, and Game Freak has in turn made their games harder. I think the fact that a lot of Pokemon players are adults and not children probably helps, but that's besides the point. I don't think they're ever going to make a game with a difficulty I would like, but Gens 8 and 9 are pretty solid difficulty-wise. The 8th gym leader is Juan from Hoenn. His team is Lovedisk, Wishcash, Celio, Crawdon, and Kingdra. There's a lot of really bad Gym 8s, and Juan being the worst kind of surprises me given how good water is as a type. I think the reason he is bad is because his fastest non-Lovedisk Pokemon is Kingdra, who comes in at 85 base speed. Semi-related, but I think you could make an argument for Luvdisc being the worst Pokemon of all time. It has 330 base stat totals. 97 of those goes into speed, leaving 233 left over. 30 of those are wasted for non-attacking stat, leaving 203 for everything else. Oh well, it at least evolves, right? Its evolution is good, right? No, it doesn't. This is it. Game Freak looked at this mon and said, yeah, that seems about right. Looking at the list of Pokemon that don't evolve that have lower base stat totals than Luvdisc, we have Solo Wishiwashi, Shedinja, Smeargle, and Ditto. Those mons at least all have a gimmick. Delibird has the same stat total as Luvdisc, but at least Delibird can look up to Iron Bundle and be like that one day, and Luvdisc has nothing and no future. Luvdisc has to look up at Elgyem with 335 base stat total and be like, why not me? Why not now? Luvdisc fans in Gen 12 are going to be eating when they finally release an evolved form with 100 extra base stats, and then they'll be looking up at powerhouses like Mischievous rather than Elgyem. I feel like this has been enough runtime padding, so I'm going to just move on. For the Elite Four, I'm going to do the 4 worst Elite Four members, the first being Phoebe from Hoenn. Her team consists of 2 Bannettes, 2 Dusclops, and a Sableye. Another thing I'm not quite at the level to commit to is having the same guy twice. That is usually an indicator of that they are bad, especially when the same guy is Bannett. The next Elite Four member is Sydney of the Hoenn region. His team is Mightyena, Shiftry, Cacturne, Crawdaunt, and Absol. This is one of the only teams in Emerald that I think is actually better in Ruby and Sapphire because it has Sharpedo over Crawdaunt. No offense to Mr. Craw, but I think having some speed is much needed on this team. Dark, unlike Ghost in my opinion, is a typically bad typing. They really only beat Ghosts and Psychic types, which among trainers are a bit more rare. The third Elite Four member is Bruno of the Kanto region. His team is 2 Onix, Hitmonchan and Lee, and Machamp. This is another classically bad Elite Four member. Not to offend Brock, but the dual Onix core is never a good idea. Also, like I said previously, mono fighting has a lot of really bad gym leaders. Plus, I keep saying, but I genuinely think speed is the most important stat when it comes to this stuff. Doesn't matter how strong you are if you get outsped in one shot pretty often. Just look at Rampardos. The final Elite Four member of this terrible squad is Marshall from Unova. His team is Sock, Throw, Mienshao, and Conkeldurr. I think being saddled with 2 pretty mediocre mons in Sock and Throw really hurts, and as much as I like Conkeldurr, its main threat comes from its ability Guts and Mach Punch making up for its bad speed stat, which doesn't come up in these simulations. Also, I really like Mienshao, but for some reason I feel like that guy never picks up kills. Maybe that comes from my Blaze Back days. And for a champion, I have Alder, the champion of Unova. This one is a bit unfair because Alder is technically the champion of this region, but not really. If you want an actual worst champion, it's the champion from Kalos, Diantha. Some concluding thoughts. I think we look back at a lot of these games through rose-colored glasses. The ones that came out when you were a kid is always your favorite. Pokemon wasn't better back then, you just had less responsibilities and were happier. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think using that as a comparison to the games that come out now is a bit unfair. These newer games do have a lot of issues, and I won't say that they don't, but there's a lot of good there, especially in the difficulty department. Anyway, rant over, thank you for watching, and goodbye.